continuous cycle between darkness and light in all of our lives is something that I feel the series Girls Last Tour is trying to portray. All of us go through a cycle between difficult times and times of joy. And not only is Girls Last Tour a representation of this, but I feel that it's also a representation of how each one of us reacts to those times, since each one of us has a different personality and a different way to cope with these events. And because Chi and Yuu are so opposite in character, we see the two extremes coping through both the difficult times and the joyous ones. And because of that, this slice of life story, I feel, is a very relatable series to watch. So what's up, people, and welcome to the Chapter 8 discussion of Girls Last Tour. So, in this chapter, as you can imagine, we go through some representations once again of difficult and joyous occasions. And once again, we see the interactions between Chi and Yuu. And especially in the first part, we're starting to understand how these two personalities can help balance and support each other. Because as stable and as down-to-earth as Chi is, she is so careful and she is so risk-averse that when she gets to a situation where there is no other option except the risky one, she has a really hard time of moving forward and she gets frozen into place. And it is Yuu at that time who gives her the ability to overcome that barrier and to get herself moving forward. Unfortunately, Yuu is the opposite. She is so carefree and she is so unworried about dangers that she becomes a threat sometimes to the group because she is reckless to the point of being dangerous. And although she gets into a situation where Yuu has to support her and move her forward, it is also Yuu that gets Chi into a seriously dangerous situation. And it is probably the first time in the series that I became extremely angry at Yuu for putting Chi in that situation. For if something even a little bit went wrong, Chi would have died immediately. And Yuu would have then said, "Oh," and then being depressed because her best friend is gone, she would have probably spent the rest of her life in depression. And so it is an interesting balance that we see. It is one that's very delicate in the sense that although they do support each other, their polar opposites tend to become really difficult sometimes to move. Yuu has a very difficult time sometimes making sure that she can move forward. On the other hand, Yuu is such a carefree person that Chi spends a lot of that depression and stress worrying over Yuu. If Yuu wasn't so reckless, Chi's life would be a lot more easier, in my opinion. And so this is a very interesting situation because of the fact that since this is an apocalyptic world, you do see these girls thrown into very unusual situations. But then, because they could support each other and somehow they continue to find that delicate balance, they seem to be able to progress. And once they get over that situation, there always is a time of joy. And in this case, since they were searching for food, they eventually come to a kitchen, an industrial kitchen, where they find some potato flour and some sugar and salt, and through that decide that they will make some rations. And that part is extremely heartening to watch between the two. And once again, this is one of those things that if there is another message that comes out from this series, it's the one to appreciate the small things in life. All of us go through some very difficult times. All of us get into a very depressing moment. But watching something like this where we see other characters get into a moment far, far more dangerous and depressing sometimes than us because of the fact that they're in a post-apocalyptic world, watching them go through helps us feel like maybe if we do continue on, we will see those little things in life that make us happy once again. And so this is a very heartening story. Although it is a slice of life story, and considering this is an apocalyptic story, it isn't very action-packed, but that doesn't mean that there isn't any thrill and there isn't any danger. And one thing that we do find in Chapter 8 is as much as they move forward, this is a world that isn't about people walking through everyday environment. We start realizing that the world that they're in is not about humans walking through the world, but they feel more like ants crawling in a gigantic, danger-infested world. And sometimes it's just by sheer luck that they get through, and they absolutely know it, which is why Chi becomes extremely fearful. But Yuu understands that that is the world that they live in, and they're going to have to keep on going despite the dangers. And so this does bring out the balance, and it does give a life lesson in that, yeah, we may fall through depression, we may fall through difficult times, but to be honest, we have to go through it as well. And so if we're going to do it, maybe we can learn from Yuu that putting on a smile and taking the road with the optimism may turn out to be a very good plan. So anyway, that is my interpretation of Chapter 8. It was a very wholesome story, although in the beginning it did feel almost disturbingly dreadful, knowing that this world is so riddled with danger. But it will be interesting to see how these girls continue through such a difficult world, and how Chi and Yuu will continue to react, which we get some understanding of, but it's always nice to see it again in a new episode. Anyway, so that's my Chapter 8 discussion. What do you think about Chapter 8 if you watched Girls Last Tour? And if you could leave your comments in the comments section, I would be very appreciative. And I'll continue on with more Girls Last Tour episodes in the future. I hope you join me at that time. And until then, happy surviving, happy adventuring, and as always, have a nice day, everyone.